Part 4 in the 10-part probate series with Yasmin Adamy at Adamy Law. Today we're discussing how can you sell a property before a parent or loved one dies?
All right, so this kind of goes a lot into estate planning, right? So let's say your parent is still alive and they're living at their homestead and they have capacity. Well, they have got capacity. It's their house. They can decide to do whatever they want with it.
Right.
If they do not have capacity, and this happens a lot in the especially with my elder law practice.
Yeah.
If you do not have if there is not a durable power of attorney that is properly drafted and has the sufficient power for you to have the authority to sell the real property on your parents' behalf, if you do not have that, then off to guardianship court we go. Whenever everybody should have a power of attorney, everybody, simply because without one, it's guardian. And if something needs to be done, like selling real property, off to guardianship court. Guardianship court is probably worse than probate court.
Really?
Yes. Guardianship court is one of, and it can be avoided with the use, if proper estate planning can avoid guardianship court. But let's say something happens, mom no longer has capacity, house needs to be sold. Well, guardianship court is where and this is where a lot of sibling arguments come up, because if there's competing interests on who should be the guardian, right? Which sibling. Sometimes it's fine where everybody agrees that it's to be one sibling or both of them together as co-guardians. But if there is a situation where maybe one of them was the caretaker and the other one doesn't trust the caretaker, sibling, it gets really messy. And then it turns into a contested guardianship, which is litigation, and it's a horrible mess because of all the emotions involved. But even if everything goes smoothly, when something is part of a guardianship, an asset is part of a guardianship, it never really leaves the court's jurisdiction. So in order to sell it, the court keeps tabs on what is going on, and you really cannot do anything without first asking the court.
Okay.
With probate, you have to remember, once we're done with probate, court doesn't care, right? So it's guardianship until that person passes away. If real property has to be sold, we have to go and petition the court for the authority for the guardian to sell it. Can't be sold at anything less than fair market value. Appraisals are required. Judge scrutinizes everything. Usually there's also, even before getting to that point, there has to be under the mental hygiene laws, a capacity hearing where there's an examining committee appointed to see if this person, your parent, has capacity. So that's even before we get to the actual guardianship proceeding of selling the real property. But after it's sold, it's held in a guardianship account, and the court keeps tabs on that, where there has to be annual accountings done and everything. So you never really get out of guardianship court once you're in there until your parent passes away. So it's an ongoing court involvement, which a lot of families don't like, and you can't blame them. If it was, they don't understand why there is this person sitting on the judge sitting on a bench wearing a black robe who is telling them what they can and cannot do for their parent.
I'd be in that boat. I would not be happy camper.
It really can cause a lot of grief, turmoil, confusion. And then the parent who, imagine how the parent would feel if they have a little bit of capacity. That is a very, it is one of those proceedings where somebody loses their dignity. Because here they are, the subject of all of this it's not nonsense. There's a purpose to it, and that is to protect the individual. But if you're let's say you are, advanced in age and you're starting to have a bit of Alzheimer's or, incapacity,
Yeah.
but you still know who you are and you want to have independence. Yet now there's this whole court proceeding around you of whether or not you can make your own decisions. All of that could be avoided with a proper power of attorney, all of it. So with a proper power of attorney, if real property needed to be sold, whoever the attorney in fact is would have the authority to sell it. No court involvement.
Oh, just by having a power of attorney.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that
Avoids
makes
guardianship completely.
Yeah. And is that the estate planning you were talking about, or is that just one of the ways to do it?
That is the correct document to utilize when someone's alive and they don't have the capacity to sell property. I mean, if they've got the capacity, if your parent has capacity to sell their own real property, they're going to sign everything. They'll sign the deed, they'll sign everything. But if they don't have capacity and they did a power of attorney nominating, you as the attorney in fact or the agent, then you would have the authority to sign the deed and effectuate that real property transaction. But that's where it's really important for people to not go on LegalZoom and get power of attorneys off of LegalZoom or any of those other do-it-yourself type of avenues.
Yeah.
Here's the power of attorney. It is a one-shot deal. Once somebody loses capacity, which is exactly when that is usually utilized,
right?
They can't do another one. It's either you do it right or you don't do it right at all, and it's not going to be effective to do anything. So it's one of those things where you want to make sure that it's correct.
Yeah.
Because by the time you actually look at it, because your parent, it needs to be utilized, too late for them to do another one.
Spend a little bit more money, talk to a professional. Don't just burn your money and hope that you dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's.
But LegalZoom said it was fine. Go try. Too late. LegalZoom has no authority to tell anybody, in a judge, hey, listen, a guardianship isn't required. We use LegalZoom. Yeah, the judge isn't gonna care.
So what if, they got early onset Alzheimer's? Sometimes their capacity is there. Sometimes it's not. Can they go set up a power of attorney at that point in time?
So what we do, and that does happen a lot with our elder law practice. With our elderly, they have, usually a lot of them do very well in the morning and they don't do so well as the day goes on.
Yeah.
If, and what I'll do is meet with that person a few different times. And if they can, if there is no red flag of somebody who might be wanting to take advantage of them or anything like that. And they, the elderly individual consistently knows who they are, who they want to appoint as their attorney, in fact, and remembers our prior meetings to some degree.
Not who are you and what have you done with my horse?
And, we may, sometimes to play it safe, and usually we'll get an affidavit from their doctor saying that they have the capacity to sign that document.
Okay.
And we'll do it. If somebody is very inconsistent, across multiple meetings of who they want to appoint, or they forget who they are, and they forget, it doesn't even matter if they know who the president is, because that isn't something that really matters, or if they don't remember exactly what year it is. That's not something that affects their ability to enter into that contract if the substantial elements of, who they are, kind of what they have,
right,
and who they want to appoint stays the same. If they completely forget about like one of their kids, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And I won't,
So it's kind of, you use your judgment basically when you're doing it.
If we think it's going to be contested, we will, even if we don't think it's going to be contested, we usually do get an affidavit from a physician. But if we think it's going to be contested at that point, and if I think that they have enough capacity to sign, I will do a video of our meetings to show the court, if it ever comes to that point, that this, our elderly client has consistently stated they want their daughter Ruby to be, their attorney in fact, over, and it never really changes. And we'll also have the execution of the document videoed.
Okay.
But like I said, if I go in one day and it's one person and next day it's another person, and
That's another
sometimes
thing that Legal Zoom can't do for you.
no, legal
All that
legal
stuff
Zoom
you
can't do
just
it.
talked about.
Now, like, you know, so that's, you know, you just have to use your best judgment and have the backup documentation if it's questioned. And like I
Okay.
said, if they're inconsistent, yeah, it's a no-go. Not gonna do it. Not gonna have
Okay.
them sign.
Okay, so selling parents' house before death, the best way to do it is for you to be a power of attorney or their attorney in fact. And other than that, I mean, if the parent's still alive and has capacity or has their wits about them, then they can do whatever they want. Once they've lost that, you want to have the power and attorney in fact in order to sell their property before their passing. And if you don't, then you've got to go through this guardianship proceeding with the courts, which can be a huge pain in the butt. Ask the court for permission to sell the property. Does that kind of sum all that up?
Yes, and just to keep everybody, you know, to keep in mind that a power of attorney is only valid when someone is alive. When somebody dies, that power of attorney is no longer valid and it cannot be used. You cannot be the power of attorney, like you cannot be an attorney in fact under a power of attorney for someone who's dead. It's a lifetime document. When you die,
so that I guess could get a little muddy if you put it on the market with me and I've got the property sold and we're closing in 30 days, but mom's real bad and she might die in 10 days and you were planning on using an attorney or a power of attorney. I mean, then what happens? What she dies before we close? What happens?
It's really important to make sure you go to an estate planning attorney who also knows elder law, and we do a ladybird deed.
Okay.
That way, if she dies, it will vest in whomever the remainder beneficiaries are. So there's no gap. There's no need to go to probate.
Okay.
But if that isn't done and she dies before the real estate transaction closes and there's no ladybird deed, then we would have to go to probate.
Then it's going to kick out our closing. And I know from experience, if you kick out a closing, your buyer might walk, and that might be the best buyer. They might be paying top dollar. They love the house. It's super unique. That's the only one for them, and they're willing to overpay for it.
Yep.
And now they walk because they can't get their house, and now we've got to resell it, and it may not be worth as much now. So,
by proper planning goes a very long way, and to make sure that if a situation like that is presenting itself, to make sure that you have you take the time to consult with a lawyer who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
But
that's why I work with you. Yes.
It's kind of the sad thing is this: people don't know all of this information, and they don't know. Oh shoot, mom's alive, mom's not doing well, and we're gonna sell the property.
Yeah.
I should be fine. Everything. I'm her power of attorney. Everything should be fine.
Yeah.
People don't realize that if she passes away, that power of attorney it ends with her.
Right.
And that is, that's why information like this, like what you're doing, is so important, is because knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And that allows people to make best decisions for their family. The one thing I do want to point out is if mom is alive, and we're not dealing with probate, we're dealing with mom is alive or dad is alive, and a power of attorney is being utilized to sell property, the money, the net proceeds, that's not the attorney in facts. That is mom or dad's. Like that does not go into the child's bank account. Like that is still mom or dad's property.
Dang it. I was going to make a call to my mom and get her power of attorney. Dang it.
No self-dealing.
All right.
Yeah, like I need to make a point for everybody who's listening in our audience that you can't, even though you're the attorney in fact, net proceeds,
you don't get to pocket that money.
You don't get to pocket that money.
Gotcha. Good point. Well done.